This is the story of Haruki, a man who lived a hellish life for 39 long years. If life were a competition for who can suffer the most, Haruki would have walked away with a gold medal, a trophy, and probably a bouquet of rotten flowers. Throughout his existence, he endured sorrow, betrayal, and disappointment after disappointment. And then, as if the universe wanted to add one last insult, he was diagnosed with an incurable form of cancer. It was so unfair that even God himself came down, cleared his throat awkwardly, and apologized. After his death, Haruki's soul floated up to heaven like a man boarding a flight with no return ticket. God met him there, looking unusually guilty for, well, a god. He admitted that Haruki's life had been so miserable that even he felt bad about it. To make things right, he promised Haruki a new life and one wish. Haruki, instead of wishing for riches, fame, or a harem, as most reincarnated protagonists would, kept it simple. He just wanted to be reborn as a farmer in a peaceful place. God agreed but thought, wow, that's way too plain. I better throw in a bonus before he changes his mind. So he handed Haruki the ultimate freebie, the almighty farming tool, the most powerful piece of equipment in the universe. With a dramatic swing of his divine staff, God sent Haruki flying into a new world. Haruki opened his eyes and immediately noticed something shocking. His body was in perfect condition. For years in his old life, he couldn't even get out of bed without feeling like he'd been run over by a truck. Now he felt like he could probably wrestle a truck. The world around him was lush, filled with towering trees and vibrant greenery. It was exactly what he had asked for, except there was no one else around. He had wished for a place without civilization, but he hadn't meant completely deserted. Solitude was nice, but this was like moving into a mansion only to realize the Wi-Fi didn't work. Dressed in plain farmer's clothes, Haruki remembered God's parting gift. The almighty farming tool was shining like an overachieving Swiss Army knife. He started plowing, and to his delight, he didn't get tired at all. The soil practically begged to grow crops. It was amazing, but also dangerous. The forest, he quickly realized, wasn't just full of trees, it was crawling with wild monsters too. Thanks a lot, God, Haruki muttered, probably the first farmer in history to worry more about being eaten than about bad weather. He explored the forest until he found a giant tree that was so huge it looked like Mother Nature's version of an apartment complex, perfect for a home. But there was still one major problem: no water. Without it, farming and survival would be tough. So Haruki did what any reasonable man with an all-powerful tool would do. He turned it into a shovel and dug straight down like a Minecraft player. Eventually, he hit water and nearly threw himself a party. With that problem solved, he went back to clearing land. One enormous tree stood in his way, but he figured he'd just hack away at it with some patience. Nope, the almighty tool took the tree down in one swing. The tree toppled so fast that Haruki barely managed to roll out of the way before being turned into farmer-flavored pancake. Okay, he thought. Maybe I need to be a little more careful with this thing. After all that, Haruki remembered he needed food, but strangely, he didn't feel hungry. Probably another cheat code slipped in his divine body. Still, he started shaping wood with the almighty tool, which could turn into any kind of tool he wanted. Though, disappointingly, no smartphones. He realized he'd also need nails, but before he could figure out how to make those, night fell. With darkness closing in, he panicked about fire. He considered turning the tool into a matchbox, but what if the matches ran out? Would the tool explode? Would God send a bill? He wasn't about to test it. Instead, he made a magnifying glass, but the sun had already clocked out for the day. So, with no other options, he crawled inside the giant tree to sleep. To his surprise, he could see clearly in the dark. His divine body had night vision. He spent the evening crafting wooden utensils like some kind of medieval IKEA. At dawn, he finally managed to start a fire with the magnifying glass. Feeling proud, he went back into the forest to chop wood. He cut trees all day, still without breaking a sweat. But then for the first time, his stomach growled faintly. As if on cue, a rabbit monster appeared and leapt at him. Startled, Haruki swung the almighty tool and killed it instantly. Dinner was solved. Not exactly a Michelin-starred meal, but it worked. Later, he realized another urgent need: a toilet. Being a man of innovation, Haruki built one. Granted, it was basically just a hole in the ground, but hey, it was progress. To give himself some dignity, he built 4 walls around it. His farm was shaping up nicely, but then came the question: what should he grow? Tomatoes? Cucumbers? Onions? While pondering, he accidentally plowed half the forest, but then he realized he didn't even have seeds. Great, he muttered. I made a mega farm with no ingredients. He decided to look for seeds tomorrow. When he woke the next morning, he almost fainted. Crops were already sprouting in the fields. He hadn't planted a single seed. Clearly, the almighty farming tool was working overtime. Inspired, Haruki built a fence and even dug a moat around his farm. He wasn't about to let random zombies or monsters raid his hard work. Days passed. The crops grew insanely fast. He built a small house with leftover wood, even managing a roof. But soon, he had unexpected visitors. Wolves. They loitered near his fields like nosy neighbors. Haruki, who always liked dogs, offered them some boar meat. The wolves accepted, and before long, they were hanging around like loyal pets. One wolf was even pregnant, so Haruki helped her and gave them shelter. By morning, she had given birth to 4 pups. Overjoyed, Haruki fed them his best meat, and just like that, he had a wolf pack for roommates. Of course, this meant he needed a bigger hut, then another one, just for vegetables. His farm was turning into a small settlement. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a stubborn girl decided to enter the infamous Forest of Death, ignoring warnings. Civilization clearly existed in this world, but Haruki didn't know that yet. Meanwhile, in heaven, God smacked his forehead as he realized his peaceful farming spot was actually smack in the middle of the Forest of Death, and because of divine rules, he couldn't even recall Haruki's soul. Oops. Back on Earth, Haruki discovered more about the almighty tool. If he thought about potatoes, seeds magically planted themselves. He tested it with all his favorite vegetables, and it worked every time. His gratitude to God was so high that he built not one, but 2 statues of him. His cooking, however, was another story. His vegetables grew perfectly, but without salt. Every dish tasted bland. Still, it was food. He also started growing fruits. Over time, the wolves grew horns on their heads. Instead of freaking out, Haruki just shrugged. As long as they don't start breathing fire, it's fine. With their help, he explored more of the forest and found another water source. To bring it back to his fields, he'd need to dig a channel. 30 minutes of digging, he grumbled, forgetting that normal farmers spent months doing this. The farm flourished. He planted wheat, sugarcane, and more. But as things looked perfect, winter arrived. Farming became nearly impossible. Haruki didn't even have proper winter clothes. He tried wearing rabbit pelts, but the smell nearly killed him. Luckily, one of his wolves introduced him to a spider the size of a car. The spider liked potatoes and spun silk in exchange for them. Haruki turned the silk into clothes, curtains, and bedsheets. Basically, he was living in silk luxury. The spider, realizing it was being exploited, declared, "No more silk until spring," and climbed into its tree to hibernate. Haruki sighed, calling it the world's laziest business partner. Months passed. Summer returned, and by then his wolf pack had grown, gone on journeys, and come back with mates. One of them even gave birth to more puppies. Haruki's home was full of life, like a cheerful farmhouse retreat. Yet, despite everything, he still felt lonely. His wolves had families, and he was still single. Talk about salt in the wound. One day, while farming, his wolf Soatan raised an alarm. Haruki rushed into the forest and found an injured girl. As he approached, she suddenly bit him and drank his blood. His wolves nearly ripped her apart, but Haruki stopped them. The girl transformed back and revealed she was a vampire named Lu. She had been researching medicinal plants, but was attacked by nobles and barely escaped. Haruki, surprisingly chill for someone just bitten, offered her more of his blood. She hesitated but accepted. Luckily, his divine body didn't seem to mind. When Haruki brought her home, Lu was stunned. A massive farm, right in the Forest of Death. She tasted his fruits and declared them the most delicious she'd ever eaten. Haruki nearly cried. It was the first time in either life anyone had praised him. They began spending time together, and Haruki learned she could use magic. She, in turn, pointed out that his farming tool was basically a magical artifact, but Lu said she couldn't stay long. Haruki, terrified of being alone again, begged her to remain. She blushed, misheard him, and thought he was proposing marriage on the spot. Haruki panicked, clarified, and apologized, but still asked her to stay. Lu finally agreed, and Haruki hugged her in pure joy. From that moment, his life changed. Now he had someone who greeted him each morning. He told Lu she was the first member of his village. One of his dogs barked as if to say, "Excuse me? You forgot yourself." Lu laughed, and for the first time, Haruki realized his lonely farming life had turned into something warm, lively, and just a little chaotic.
Our new Van starts with a too intense scene where our little protagonist Mamori was getting beaten up badly by his father for fun. Look at this witch enjoying her movie. If they hate their own kids so much, why bother giving birth? Then that is how his life is. While his class was on a field trip, Oyamata took Ayaka's love novel she brought just to make fun of her and bully her in front of all of his simp classmates. No one has the guts to stand up and do something about this. The elites of the class were just enjoying rather than stopping him. Furthermore, their teacher was also someone who doesn't care about it. So if Maimori stood up, he would be an hare that just tried to intervene. Their Oyamata then told Ayaka to give her personal details, only then he would give up. So Maimori stood up at last, but that wouldn't work anyways. Finally, he had to stand and told Oyamata to stand. But if he wants to do something to Maimori, even other kids supported that decision. So Oyamata sat down even when he was bullying a front kid. The teacher finally told him to leave him alone. But then suddenly a portal took all of them to some new world where a goddess welcomed them all. Her name was Visus, and she told them about the threat of the great demon empire. About 200 years ago, Hiro has defeated the demons, but now the threat has risen again.
Anime begins in the royal capital of Paluma. It's a world where demihumans are slaves, and the treatment of demihumans is harsh, but only Banzo was the one who shows kindness to demihumans and pays extra for their hard work. That demihuman tried to return the money, knowing other humans would look down on Banza for showing kindness to them, but his assistant Quinn tells the guy to accept it since Banza won't back down. Bonzo wants the equality for both humans and demihumans, but suddenly his hands started to glow up, and with a flash of light he vanished and got summoned to an unknown place. He was in the Clyro Kingdom, where Bonzo was summoned as a hero candidate. Then a minister tells him they are battling against the Dark Army. So they had to summon heroes from other worlds, so he brought out a crystal to assess Banza powers, and all the heroes candidate gets divine blessing sort of powers beyond imagination, but Banza didn't receive the blessing plus, he was just an ordinary guy with level 1, so Banza asks them to send him back home. But on his right side a blondie guy got summoned with a max out ability. He was no doubt a hero. And everyone left Banza alone and didn't give any attention to Banza, so the gate got closed, and he was left out alone with no one, and even the king was busy with Blondie. While leaving out Banza, he was on the balcony wishing to get back home, but the gate just got closed due to their negligence of ignoring Banza, and being unable to send Banza back is the failure of their nation, so the king decided to send Banza up to the north of the Dalava forest, where he would live out his rest of life. They excommunicated Bonza to hide their mistake, and with a new morning Bonza was thrown into a carriage which will take him to the north. He tried to talk to the lizard men, but he was ordered not to talk with Bonza, so the days went out, and he arrived at the north after 20 days. The king had given him a magic bag with unlimited storage, but before leaving the lizard warned him that a dark army lurks in this forest, so he must stay alert with that. He left Bonza, and Bonza was relieved that magic bag works the same as his world. He had many things for survival, but he brought out a shiny sword. First there some slime came out, but they looked harmless. He was wrong though, but with just a few hits the blade reached its limit. There a window showed Bonza just leveled up, and his stats had no number in it. Bonza didn't know about this symbol, but it means he gains infinite cheat skill system. After that his magic system warned him that his magic bag was enchanted with monster luring location tracking spell, which explains why those slime attacked him. It was King's doing that he wants to kill Banza by pulling out these dirty tricks, so system suggested the removal of the spell and Banza agreed. So instead of getting angry, Banza thought of exploring the woods, but system warned